The crystal wine glass felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my trembling hand. I'd been working at Aurelio's for exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of forcing myself through the heavy oak doors every evening. 3 weeks of whispering my orders to the kitchen staff instead of speaking at a normal volume. 3 weeks of praying I'd become invisible enough that the managers would stop watching me like I was about to shatter. Tonight, that prayer went spectacularly unanswered. The private dining room on the 3rd floor was reserved for someone important. I knew this because Marco, the head server who'd trained me, had pulled me aside 2 hours ago with instructions that felt more like warnings. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena, listen carefully. This party is different. These men, he'd paused, choosing his words with unusual care. These men expect perfection. No mistakes. No conversation unless they address you directly. You serve, you disappear. Understand? I'd nodded, my stomach already twisting itself into knots. Now, standing in the corner of the opulent dining room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline, I watched 8 men in suits that probably cost more than my yearly rent conduct business over 32-ounce steaks and bottles of wine I couldn't pronounce. The man at the head of the table commanded attention without trying. Mid-30s, dark hair styled with casual precision, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the low lighting. A thin scar traced from his left eyebrow to his temple, not disfiguring, but dangerous. Like everything about him suggested violence held on a leash. He spoke Italian. Not the textbook Italian from the community college class I'd taken and failed. This was fluid, musical, the kind that suggested he'd learned it from birth rather than books. His companions listened with the focused attention of men who understood that missing a word could be costly. I refilled water glasses with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, cleared plates with movements. I tried to make silent, stayed invisible. That was the goal. Serve and disappear. Signorina. The word cut through the low conversation. I froze, water pitcher halfway to a glass. Every man at the table turned to look at me. My face burned with the attention. The man at the head, the dangerous one, gestured to his empty wine glass with a slight tilt of his head. More Barolo, please. His English carried the same Italian accent as his native tongue. Smooth, educated, with an undertone that suggested he rarely had to ask for anything twice. Yes, of course. My voice came out barely above a whisper. I set down the water pitcher with trembling hands and reached for the wine bottle on the serving cart. The label screamed, expensive. The kind of bottle that probably cost more than my monthly student loan payment. My fingers felt disconnected from my body as I lifted it. Just pour the wine, Elena. Simple. You've done this 100 times. I approached his chair. He'd returned to his conversation, dismissing me from his attention as quickly as he'd summoned it. The other men talked in low voices about shipping routes and territory words that meant nothing to me but seemed weighted with significance. I tilted the bottle. Wine flowed into the glass, deep burgundy catching the candlelight. Almost done. Just another second and I could disappear back into my corner. A man to his right laughed suddenly, loudly. The sound startled me. My hand jerked. The bottle tilted too far. Wine splashed over the rim of the glass, onto the pristine white tablecloth, onto his lap, onto his suit jacket charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than everything I owned combined. Time stopped. The entire room went silent. 8 pairs of eyes fixed on me with expressions ranging from shock to something darker, dangerous. The man at the head of the table looked down at the spreading burgundy stain across his chest and lap. Then slowly, deliberately, he looked up at me. Those black eyes held mine. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My heart hammered so violently I thought it might crack my ribs. I'm so sorry. The words tumbled out in a rush, choked and panicked. I'm so sorry. I'll get towels. I'll pay for the cleaning. I'm so sorry. I set the bottle down with shaking hands and grabbed the white cloth napkin from the serving cart. Without thinking, I pressed it against his chest, trying desperately to blot the wine before it set deeper into the fabric. A hand caught my wrist, firm but not painful. I looked up to find him staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. His thumb rested against my racing pulse. Stop. Just one word. Quiet. Controlled. I froze, napkin still pressed against his chest, close enough to smell his cologne cedar, and something darker, richer, with an edge of smoke. I'm sorry, I whispered again. Tears burned behind my eyes. This job was supposed to save me. The tips at Aurelio's were the only thing keeping me afloat after my grandmother's medical bills had consumed everything. Please, I'm so sorry. He released my wrist slowly. His gaze never left my face, cataloging every detail with an intensity that made me want to disappear into the floor. What's your name? Elena. My voice cracked. Elena Moretti. Elena. He said it correctly, the Italian pronunciation rolling off his tongue naturally. How long have you worked here? 3 weeks. I was still holding the napkin against his ruined suit, frozen in place by his attention. 3 weeks. He repeated it thoughtfully. Then, to my absolute shock, something that might have been amusement flickered across his expression. And in those 3 weeks, have you assaulted any other guests with wine? No, never. I'm usually very careful. The laugh startled me and I was rambling, making it worse. Heat flooded my cheeks. I'll pay for the dry cleaning, or the replacement, however much it costs. One of the other men at the table made a sound, not quite a laugh, but close. The dangerous man's eyes flicked to him briefly, and the sound cut off immediately. How much do you make in a week, Elena Moretti? He asked, returning his attention to me. The question threw me. I what? Your wages. Tips. How much? I don't. Maybe 300? On a good week? My voice had shrunk to almost nothing. This suit cost $8,000. He delivered the information without emotion, just fact. The shirt, another 600. So you're offering to give me approximately 16 weeks of your income to replace clothing I have a dozen versions of at home? The math crushed me. 16 weeks. 4 months of work. I couldn't afford that. I could barely afford rent as it was. My grandmother's medications alone ate through most of my paycheck. But I'd ruined his clothes. I had to make it right somehow. I'll work it out, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I can pick up extra shifts. I'll figure it out. He studied me for a long moment. Then he stood fluid, controlled, 6 feet of controlled power in a wine-stained suit. This close, I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. He was intimidating without trying, the kind of man who commanded rooms without raising his voice. Gentlemen, he addressed the table without looking away from me. We're finished for tonight. Conclude this in the morning. Boss. One of them started. Tomorrow. Final. No room for argument. They rose as one, moving with synchronized efficiency that suggested military training or something similar. Within 30 seconds, the room had emptied, all except him, and me, still standing there with a wine-stained napkin in my shaking hands. You're terrified, he observed. Not a question. I couldn't lie. Yes. Of me specifically, or of losing your job. Both? It came out like a question. I really need this job. My grandmother, she's sick, and the medical bills. I cut myself off. He didn't need my life story. I'm just really sorry about your suit. He moved to the window, looking out over the Chicago skyline. The wine stain was dramatic against the gray fabric, impossible to miss, impossible to ignore. Do you know who I am, Elena? The question sent ice through my veins. The careful way Marco had warned me. The immediate obedience of the other men. The way the entire room had gone silent when I'd spilled the wine. No, I whispered. Should I? He turned back to face me. Probably better that you don't. A knock at the door interrupted the tension. Marco appeared, his face pale when he saw the stain. Saw me still standing there. Mr. Romano, I apologize profusely for. It was an accident. The man Romano cut him off. Nothing more. Of course, but still, we should comp the entire meal and... The meal was excellent. Bill me as usual. Romano's attention shifted back to me. As for Elena, she stays employed. No disciplinary action, no mention of this incident in her file. Am I clear? Marco blinked, clearly thrown. Yes, of course. Whatever you wish, Mr. Romano. Good. Romano moved toward the door, then paused beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. Elena Moretti, you owe me a suit. I'll be in touch about how you can repay that debt. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The way he said it made it sound like much more than dry cleaning. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the wreckage of what should have been a simple evening of invisible service. Marco grabbed my arm the second the door closed. Do you have any idea who that was? I shook my head, still trying to process what had just happened. Dante Romano. Marco's voice dropped to a whisper, like saying the name too loudly might summon something dangerous. He owns half the restaurants in Chicago, including this one. Marco paused, choosing words carefully. He's connected, Elena. Very connected. And you just dumped wine all over him. Connected. The word carried weight. I was only beginning to understand. But he said I could keep my job. I managed. He also said you owe him a debt. Marco released my arm, his expression grave. That's worse, Elena. Much worse. Men like Dante Romano don't forget debts. They collect them. I couldn't sleep that night. My studio apartment in Pilsen was too hot, the radiator hissing and clanking despite my attempts to turn it down. I lay on my mattress on the floor. I'd sold the bed frame 6 months ago to pay for Nana's prescriptions and stared at the water-stained ceiling. You owe me a suit. I'll be in touch about how you can repay that debt. The words played on repeat in my mind. What did that mean? How did someone like me repay? Someone like him? Someone who wore $8,000 suits and commanded rooms full of dangerous men with single words? My phone sat on the floor beside me. 16 missed calls from my cousin Angela. 3 texts asking why I wasn't answering. I'd ignored them all. How could I explain what happened when I barely understood it myself? The apartment was silent except for the radiator and the occasional siren from the street below. Chicago at 2 a.m. was never truly quiet. But my neighborhood came close. Too poor for much nightlife. Too tired from working multiple jobs to stay up late causing trouble. I thought about Dante Romano. Those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through me. The controlled way he moved, like violence was always an option but never the first one. The scar that suggested he'd survived something that should have killed him. Connected, Marco had said. I wasn't naive enough to misunderstand what that meant. My phone buzzed. I jerked upright, heart hammering. Unknown number. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the decline button. It buzzed again. Same number. With trembling hands, I answered. Hello? Elena Moretti. That voice. Smooth, accented, unmistakable. I hope I'm not disturbing you. How did he get my number? Mr. Romano. I know. I'm awake. Good. I have a proposal regarding your debt. I sat up fully, pulling my knees to my chest. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, like his voice was filling every corner. I meant what I said. I'll work extra shifts. I can have the money in a few months if... I don't want your money, Elena. The statement hung in the air between us, heavy, loaded with implications I didn't want to examine. Then, what do you want? A pause. In the background, I heard ice clinking against glass. He was drinking something. Late night or early morning for him, too. I have a problem, he said finally. A business complication that requires a specific solution. You could provide that solution. I'm a waitress, I said, confusion overriding fear. I don't understand how I could help with business. You're also young, attractive, and most importantly, innocent. The way he said innocent made it sound like a commodity. I need someone who appears to be exactly what they are. No deception, no hidden agenda. Just a shy, genuine woman who accidentally spilled wine on a stranger. My stomach tightened. I don't understand. I need a date, Elena. To a charity gala tomorrow night. Several important people will be there. People who need to see me with someone. Wholesome. Someone who softens certain perceptions about my business practices. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? The words came out higher than intended. I want you to be exactly yourself. Shy, nervous, kind. The woman who apologized profusely for ruining a suit and offered to give me 4 months of income to make it right. His voice carried something I couldn't identify. Amusement? Appreciation? One evening, you accompany me to the gala, smile appropriately, and your debt is cleared. The suit is forgotten. It sounded too simple, too easy. That's it? Just one date? Just one evening, he confirmed. I'll send a car for you at 6. Wear something elegant. I'll have options delivered to your apartment tomorrow morning. All you need to do is be present and be yourself. Why me? The question escaped before I could stop it. You could have anyone. Actual girlfriends. Models. Why would you want someone who can barely string 2 words together in front of strangers? Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had softened slightly. Because everyone at that gala will be performing, Elena. Playing roles, wearing masks. You're the only person I've met in years who doesn't know how to pretend to be something she's not. That authenticity is valuable. Rare. I should say no. Every instinct screamed to decline, to find another way to repay him, to stay as far from Dante Romano as possible. But I thought about the rent due in a week, the utilities I'd been avoiding, Nana's next doctor's appointment that I couldn't afford. One evening in exchange for clearing a debt that would take months to repay otherwise. Okay, I heard myself say. One evening. Excellent. Satisfaction colored his tone. The car arrives at 6. Don't be late, Elena Moretti. I'll see you tomorrow night. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in the darkness, phone still pressed to my ear, wondering what I'd just agreed to. Outside my window, Chicago continued its restless sleep. Inside, I felt like I'd just stepped off a cliff into a freefall I couldn't escape. One evening, I told myself. Just one evening with Dante Romano. How complicated could it possibly be? The dresses arrived at 9 a.m. 3 of them, each in its own garment bag, delivered by a man in a black suit who didn't smile or speak beyond asking me to sign for the delivery. I carried them inside with shaking hands, laid them across my second-hand couch, and just stared. The first was emerald green, silk, floor-length, with a neckline that would show more skin than I was comfortable with. The second was black classic, elegant, with long sleeves and a subtle shimmer in the fabric. The third was deep burgundy, almost the color of the wine I'd spilled, with delicate lace detail across the bodice. Each had a price tag I quickly flipped over, not wanting to see numbers that would make me physically ill. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Choose whichever makes you feel most comfortable. The goal is confidence, not costume. D. He was texting me now. Like this was normal. Like I regularly received $1,000 dresses from dangerous men. I picked the black one. It felt safest, most anonymous. The kind of dress that wouldn't draw attention beyond what was necessary. The rest of the day passed in an anxious blur. I called Nana, checked on her medications, avoided telling her anything about what was happening. She was in the assisted living facility I could barely afford, comfortable but expensive, unaware of how close I was to losing everything trying to keep her there. You sound stressed, Piccola, she said in her heavily accented English. What troubles you? Nothing, Nana. Just work things. You work too hard. You should find a nice boy. Settle down. Let someone take care of you for once. I almost laughed. If only she knew about the nice boy picking me up tonight. At 5, I started getting ready. The shower in my apartment ran either scalding or freezing with no in-between. I managed lukewarm for approximately 3 minutes before it shifted to ice. I dried off shivering, staring at myself in the foggy bathroom mirror. 24 years old, dark hair that never cooperated, falling in waves I'd long since given up trying to control. Green eyes that my mother used to say were my best feature before she died when I was 16. Too thin from skipping meals to afford Nana's medications. Shoulders that carried more weight than they should. I looked tired, scared, completely out of my depth. The dress fit perfectly. Whoever had guessed my size had been disturbingly accurate. It hugged curves I'd forgotten I had, fell to just above my ankles, made me look older, more sophisticated, like someone who belonged at charity galas instead of someone who served them. Makeup was a disaster. My hands shook too badly to apply eyeliner with any precision. I gave up after the 3rd attempt and settled for mascara and lip gloss. Natural, unpolished. Exactly what Dante had said he wanted. The shoes that had come with the dress were impossible. 4-inch heels that I could barely walk in. I practiced pacing my apartment, stumbling twice before admitting defeat and switching to my own black flats. They didn't match the elegance of the dress, but at least I could walk. At 5:58, I stood by my window watching for the car. At exactly 6, a black town car pulled up to my building. The driver emerged another man in a suit, this one older with silver threading through dark hair. He looked up at my window somehow, knowing exactly which apartment was mine. My phone buzzed. D. He'll wait as long as you need. But eventually, you have to decide if you're brave enough to get in the car. Brave. The word stung because he was right. I'd spent my entire life being afraid. Afraid of speaking up, of drawing attention, of existing too loudly in spaces that felt too big. But I'd also spent my entire life surviving, working multiple jobs as a teenager after Mom died, taking care of Nana when everyone else in the family disappeared, putting myself through community college while waitressing nights, building a life from nothing but determination and desperation. If I could do all that, I could survive one evening with Dante Romano. I grabbed my small clutch, the only purse I owned that didn't look like it came from a thrift store, and headed downstairs. The driver opened the door before I reached the car. "Miss Moretti, Mr. Romano is waiting at the venue. I'll escort you there directly." I slid into the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and luxury, everything clean and expensive and completely foreign. The door closed with a soft click that felt like sealing a tomb. As we pulled away from my building, I watched my neighborhood disappear in the rearview mirror. The familiar streets, the corner bodega, the park where I'd spent summers as a kid, everything I knew, falling away, replaced by Chicago's glittering downtown, buildings that touched the sky, people in expensive clothes heading to expensive places. The driver took us to the Peninsula Hotel. Valets in crisp uniforms opened doors. Women in gowns that cost more than my yearly income glided past. Men in tuxedos laughed and shook hands, comfortable in their wealth and power. I felt like an imposter. The driver helped me out of the car. "Mr. Romano is waiting in the main hall. Through those doors, straight ahead." I forced my feet to move. One step, another, through the doors into a lobby that belonged in a palace. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, flowers arranged in massive displays that probably cost hundreds of dollars. And there, standing near the entrance to the ballroom, was Dante Romano. He wore a tuxedo that made his normal suits look casual. Perfectly tailored, black with a subtle sheen in the fabric. His dark hair was styled back, that scar visible and somehow adding to rather than detracting from his devastating appearance. When he saw me, something flickered across his expression. Surprise? Appreciation? It vanished too quickly to name. He crossed to me in 3 strides, movements fluid and controlled. "Elena, Mr. Romano, Dante." He cut me off gently. "Tonight, you call me Dante." Up close, he smelled like cedar and bergamot. Expensive. Intoxicating. His dark eyes traced my face, cataloging details with that same intensity from the restaurant. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "The dress is perfect. I can't walk in the shoes." The confession tumbled out before I could stop it. I tried, but I kept falling, so I wore my own. "I'm sorry they don't match, but..." He held up a hand, stopping my rambling. Then, to my shock, he smiled. An actual smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger, less dangerous. "I like that you chose comfort over appearance." His hand found the small of my back, warm through the thin fabric. "Ready?" "No," I admitted. "But I don't think that matters." "No," he agreed, amusement coloring his tone. "It doesn't. Just stay close to me, Elena. I'll handle everything else." We walked into the ballroom together, and I stepped fully into Dante Romano's world. Whatever came next, there was no turning back now. The ballroom was a cathedral of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers the size of my entire apartment hung from, vaulted ceilings painted with frescoes that probably predated Chicago itself. Round tables draped in ivory linens surrounded a dance floor that gleamed like glass. A string quartet played something classical and beautiful in the corner, nearly drowned out by the hum of conversation from hundreds of guests who looked like they'd stepped out of fashion magazines. I didn't belong here. Every step deeper into the room reinforced that truth. Women in gowns that cost more than Nonna's monthly care swept past with practiced grace. Men in tuxedos clustered in groups, discussing business and politics with the casual confidence of people who shaped the world to their preferences. And I was here with Dante Romano, his hand still resting at the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd with proprietary certainty. "Breathe, Elena," he murmured, his mouth close enough to my ear that I felt his breath. "You look like you're walking to your execution." "I feel like I am," I whispered back. "Everyone's staring. They're staring because you're beautiful, and because you're with me. They're wondering who you are, why I brought you, what you mean to me." His hand pressed slightly more firmly against my spine. "Let them wonder." We stopped at the edge of the ballroom. A server appeared immediately with champagne. Dante took 2 glasses, handed me one with a look that suggested I should drink it. I took a sip. The bubbles tickled my nose, and the taste was dry, expensive, nothing like the cheap wine we served at the restaurant. "Mr. Romano." A man approached 60-something, silver hair, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What a pleasant surprise. I didn't know you'd be attending tonight. Commissioner Hayes." Dante's tone was cordial but cool. "I decided last minute. Chicago's children deserve support. After all, the lie was smooth, practiced. This entire event was for the Children's Hospital Foundation. According to the program, someone had pressed into my hand at the entrance. Dante had made it sound like philanthropy when really, he'd needed cover. Needed me as that cover. Commissioner Hayes's attention shifted to me. His assessment was quick, clinical, dismissive. And who is this lovely young lady? Elena Moretti, Dante answered before I could. My date for the evening. Charming. The word dripped with condescension. Moretti, any relation to the Moretti family from the north side? I had no idea what he was talking about. I don't think so. My family's from Pilsen. We're just... Elena's family has been in Chicago for 3 generations, Dante interjected smoothly, saving me from my stammering. Her grandmother emigrated from Sicily in the 50s. Salt of the earth people. The kind who built this city with their hands. The way he said it made my humble background sound noble instead of poor. Commissioner Hayes's expression shifted slightly, still dismissive, but perhaps marginally less so. How lovely. Well, enjoy the evening. He drifted away, already forgetting we existed. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I'm terrible at this. You're honest at this, Dante corrected. That's different, and more valuable. He guided me toward our assigned table. Hayes is a corrupt bureaucrat who takes bribes from 4 different organizations, including mine. His opinion is worthless beyond the power he temporarily holds. The casual admission that he bribed police commissioners should have shocked me. Instead, it just confirmed what I'd already suspected. Dante Romano's world operated by different rules than mine. Our table was near the front, close to the stage where I assumed someone important would speak later. 6 other seats surrounded us, currently empty. Dante pulled out my chair with old-world courtesy, waited for me to sit, then settled beside me with the relaxed posture of someone completely comfortable in his environment. How many of these events have you attended? I asked, trying to make conversation that wouldn't reveal how desperately out of place I felt. Too many to count. He sipped his champagne, dark eyes scanning the room constantly. Even relaxed, he was alert, cataloging every face, every movement. Charity galas are useful. They provide cover for meetings that would look suspicious in other contexts, and they allow certain people to appear philanthropic while conducting business that's anything but charitable. Like you? His lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close, like me. A couple approached our table. The woman was stunning, late 20s, blonde, wearing a red dress that looked painted on. The man beside her was older, distinguished, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Dante. The man extended his hand. I heard rumors you'd be here, but I didn't believe them. You usually avoid these things like the plague. Dante stood, shook his hand with firm precision. Thomas, I decided to make an exception. His attention shifted to the woman. Catherine, you look lovely as always. Catherine's smile was predatory. Her eyes raked over me with open assessment and found me lacking. Dante, it's been too long. You never call anymore. The history between them was obvious, uncomfortable. I looked down at my champagne, wishing I could disappear. I've been busy, Dante said simply. No apology, no explanation. Thomas, Catherine, this is Elena Moretti. Elena, Thomas Brennan, and Catherine Vitali. Thomas nodded politely. Catherine's expression suggested she'd rather I didn't exist. Moretti, Catherine repeated, her voice carrying a subtle edge. That's a rather common name. Are you in? Hospitality? The way she said hospitality made it sound like an insult. I'm a server, I said quietly, meeting her eyes despite every instinct screaming to look away. At Aurelio's, a waitress. Catherine's smile widened, sharp and cutting. How? Quaint. Dante, darling, I didn't know you'd started, recruiting from your own restaurants. Is that the new hiring practice? Heat flooded my face. The insult was clear, deliberate, designed to put me in my place. Dante's hand found mine under the table. His fingers laced through mine, squeezed once. A warning? Reassurance? Both? Elena is my guest tonight, Dante said, his voice dropping to something cold. Dangerous. And as my guest, she deserves the same respect you'd show me. Unless you've forgotten what that respect looks like, Catherine, I'd be happy to remind you. The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. Catherine's smile faltered. Thomas cleared his throat uncomfortably. Of course, Catherine said quickly. I meant no offense. It's lovely to meet you, Elena. Truly. The lie was transparent, but at least she was backing down. They made excuses and drifted to their own table across the ballroom. I watched them go, my hand still clasped in Dante's under the table. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I embarrassed you. I should. I have lied about what I do, or stop." His grip tightened. "You have nothing to apologize for. Catherine is bitter because I ended our arrangement 8 months ago. She's taking that bitterness out on you, which is unacceptable." Arrangement. The word suggested something transactional. Business, not romance. "What kind of arrangement?" I asked before I could stop myself. Dante released my hand, but slowly, like letting go required effort, the kind where two people use each other for appearance and convenience. She wanted access to my resources and connections. I needed someone presentable for events like this. It was mutually beneficial until it wasn't. What changed? He looked at me then, really looked at me, with an intensity that made my breath catch. I realized I preferred being alone to being with someone I had to pretend to enjoy. The statement hung between us, heavy with implications I didn't fully understand. The evening progressed in a blur of forced conversation and careful navigation. Dante introduced me to dozens of people whose names I immediately forgot. Businessmen, politicians, society women who smiled with their mouths, while their eyes calculated my worth and found it wanting. Through it all, Dante stayed close. His hand on my back, my elbow, occasionally my hand. Small touches that probably looked affectionate to outsiders but felt more like anchors, keeping me grounded, keeping me safe. Dinner was served courses I couldn't name, prepared by chefs whose techniques I couldn't identify, presented on china that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I pushed food around my plate, too anxious to actually eat, hyper-aware of Dante beside me, of the way he moved, the way he spoke, the controlled power he exuded without trying. Between the main course and dessert, someone took the stage. An older woman in a navy gown, her voice carrying through the ballroom with practiced projection. "Thank you all for joining us tonight in support of Chicago Children's Hospital. Your generosity will directly impact the lives of our city's most vulnerable." The speech faded to background noise. My attention caught on a man across the ballroom, watching our table with focused intensity. He was younger, maybe late 20s, with sharp features and an expression I couldn't read. When our eyes met, he didn't look away, just kept staring with unsettling directness. "Who is that?" I whispered to Dante, nodding subtly in the man's direction. Dante followed my gaze. His entire body went rigid. The relaxed posture vanished, replaced by coiled tension that radiated danger. "Marco Andretti," he said quietly. "Stay away from him, Elena. If he approaches, you come to me immediately. Understand?" The warning in his tone sent ice through my veins. What does he want? Things I won't let him have. Before I could ask more, the speeches ended. Music swelled the string quartet replaced by a small orchestra. Couples began moving to the dance floor, swirling in elegant patterns that looked choreographed. Dante stood, offered his hand. "Dance with me." "I can't dance," I protested. "I've never learned. I'll step on your feet and embarrass both of us. Then I'll teach you." His hand remained extended, patient. "Trust me, Elena. I won't let you fall." Something about the way he said it suggested he wasn't just talking about dancing. I placed my hand in his. He led me to the dance floor with that same fluid grace, positioned me carefully, one hand on my waist, the other clasping my hand, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, see the subtle stubble along his jaw, count his heartbeats if I wanted to. "Follow my lead," he murmured. "Don't think, just feel the music and trust me." The orchestra played something slow, classical. Dante moved and I moved with him, stumbling only once before finding the rhythm. His hand at my waist guided me with gentle pressure, left, right, spin, stop. Simple steps made elegant by his confidence. "You're doing well," he said after a moment. "See? Not so difficult. Because you're doing all the work." But I was smiling despite myself. When was the last time I'd smiled? Actually smiled instead of the customer service version I wore at the restaurant? "That's how it's supposed to work," Dante countered. "The lead guides, the follow trusts. It's a partnership built on mutual understanding." We turned, and I caught sight of Marco Andretti still watching us, still focused with that same unsettling intensity. Other people were dancing, laughing, enjoying themselves, but he just watched. "Why does he keep staring?" I asked. Dante's hand tightened on my waist. "Because he wants to provoke me. Make me react. It's a game people in my world play, testing boundaries, looking for weaknesses. Am I a weakness? The question came out before I could stop it. Dante's dark eyes found mine, held them with an intensity that made the crowded ballroom feel suddenly intimate. Yes, he said simply. Which is why I need to be very careful about how I handle you. Handle. Like I was a problem to be solved, a complication to be managed. The song ended. Dante led me off the dance floor, his hand never leaving my back. We'd just reached our table when a new figure approached. Older man, maybe 50, with the kind of face that suggested violence was familiar territory. 2 younger men flanked him, bodyguards, though they weren't as obvious about it as Dante's people had been. Romano, the man's voice carried rough edges, years of smoking and shouting. I heard you were making an appearance tonight. Didn't believe it until I saw it with my own eyes. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, still controlled, but differently, like facing a threat he'd been expecting. Salvatore, I didn't realize you were on the guest list. Last-minute addition. Donated $50,000 to get myself invited. Salvatore's attention shifted to me. And who's this pretty thing? Seems young. For you, Dante. Robbing cradles now? The insult was casual, delivered with a smile that made it worse somehow. Elena, Dante said, his voice tight. Wait for me at the bar. Order whatever you'd like. I'll join you shortly. It wasn't a request. I recognized the tone, the same one he'd used in the restaurant when he'd dismissed his men. Absolute authority that didn't invite argument. I started to object, to say I could handle whatever this was, but the look in Dante's eyes stopped me. Not anger. Something else. Fear? Concern? Okay, I whispered. I walked to the bar on shaking legs, hyper-aware of Dante and Salvatore behind me, their voices dropping too low to hear over the orchestra and conversations surrounding us. The bartender, a young woman with perfect makeup and a professional smile, asked what I wanted. Water, I said. Just water. She poured it without judgment. I sipped slowly, trying not to obviously watch Dante's conversation with Salvatore, but I could see them in the mirror behind the bar, see the way Dante's shoulders were rigid, see how Salvatore gestured aggressively, his bodyguards flanking him like threats personified. This wasn't business. This was something personal. First time here? I startled, turned to find Marco Andretti standing beside me. Up close. He was handsome in a cold way, all sharp angles and calculating eyes. Yes, I managed. Thought so. You have that deer in headlights look. Like you wandered into the wrong party. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm Marco. Elena. I didn't offer my hand. I know. His smile widened slightly. You're here with Dante Romano. That's brave of you. The way he said brave made it sound like stupid. He invited me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm just his date for the evening. Right, just his date. Marco leaned against the bar, angling his body toward mine in a way that felt territorial. Did he tell you what he does? Who he really is? I don't see how. That's your business. It becomes my business when innocent people get caught in crossfire. His tone shifted, losing the mockery. Dante Romano is dangerous, Elena. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's promised, it's a lie designed to use you for something. Men like him don't care about women like you except as tools or targets. Fear spiked through me. Not because I didn't believe Marco, part of me absolutely did, but because his words confirmed suspicions I'd been trying to ignore since Dante had first called me. Why do you care? I asked. Because I've seen what happens to people who get too close to Dante. They either become complicit in his business, or they become casualties. Marco's eyes held mine. Which one do you want to be, Elena? Before I could answer, a hand closed around my elbow. Firm, possessive. Dante. Andretti. His voice was ice. I believe the lady and I were having a private evening. Marco straightened, hands raised in mock surrender. Just making conversation, Romano. No harm intended. The harm is in your presence. Dante's grip on my elbow tightened. Not painful, but unmistakable. Stay away from her. Stay away from me. Or, we'll have a conversation neither of us will enjoy. Marco's smile turned sharp. Looking forward to it, he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Dante didn't release my elbow. What did he say to you? Dante demanded. He asked if I knew who you really were. The words came out shaky. He said you were dangerous. That people who get close to you become casualties. Something flickered across Dante's expression. Pain? Guilt? It vanished too quickly to name. He's not wrong, Dante said quietly. I am dangerous, Elena, and people who get close to me often get hurt. That's the truth I can't hide from you anymore. The honesty gutted me, because part of me had been hoping he'd deny it. Laugh it off. Tell me Marco was lying and I was safe. Then why did you bring me here? My voice cracked. Why involve? Get me at all if I'm just going to become another casualty? Because I needed. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. Let's go. This evening is over. We haven't even finished. Now, Elena. He guided me through the ballroom, past curious stares and whispered conversations, past Catherine's smug expression and Thomas's knowing look, past Commissioner Hayes and the society women who'd dismissed me, out into the lobby, into the cool Chicago night, to the waiting town car. Dante opened the door himself this time. Get in. I hesitated. This was my chance. I could refuse, could walk away, could take a cab back to my tiny apartment and forget this entire night ever happened. But something in Dante's expression stopped me. He looked, hunted, cornered, like whatever conversation he'd had with Salvatore had stripped away the controlled exterior and exposed something raw underneath. I got in the car. Dante slid in beside me. Drive, he told the driver. Then to me, we need to talk. Really, talk. And not here where everyone's watching. Where then? My place. He read the fear in my expression and added quickly, You'll be safe. I promise you, Elena. Whatever else I am, whatever you've heard about me, I won't hurt you. Not physically. Not ever. The distinction not physically suggested he knew he'd hurt me in other ways. The drive took 20 minutes. We headed north, away from downtown's glittering lights, into neighborhoods where old money whispered instead of shouted. Buildings gave way to estates hidden behind walls and gates. The car stopped at security gates that opened automatically. A long driveway curved through manicured grounds to a house that looked like it belonged in a European film. Stone and glass, modern architecture with classical elements, 3 stories of controlled luxury overlooking Lake Michigan. This is where you live? The question came out odd despite myself. One of several properties. Dante exited the car, offered his hand to help me. Out. Come inside. I'll explain everything. Everything. The word felt both promise and threat. I followed him through massive doors into a foyer that could have held my entire apartment twice over. Marble floors, art that looked original and priceless, a staircase that curved up to the second floor with mathematical precision. It was beautiful, cold, empty despite the obvious expense. Would you like something to drink? Dante asked, shrugging out of his tuxedo jacket. Underneath, his white shirt was perfectly pressed, cufflinks glinting in the low light. Wine seems appropriate, I said, given how we met. His lips curved almost a smile. Wine it is. He led me through the house to a study lined with books and dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Moonlight silvered the water, turning it into something otherworldly. Dante poured 2 glasses of red wine from a decanter, handed me one, then gestured to the leather couch. Sit, please. I sat. He settled beside, me not touching but close enough that I felt the heat of him. You deserve the truth, he said without preamble. About who I am. What I do. Why Marco Andretti was right when he called me dangerous. My heart hammered. Okay. Dante took a long drink of wine, then set the glass down with careful precision. My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations. My great-grandfather came from Sicily in the 1920s, built a network of businesses, restaurants, construction, shipping, all legitimate on paper. But not in practice, I finished. No, not in practice. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor between his feet. The Romano family controls significant portions of Chicago's import business. We move goods through the ports, some legal, some less so. We have interests in construction, real estate, hospitality, and we maintain order in territories other families might contest. Territories, families. The language of organized crime delivered in Dante's Crime. Smooth, accented English. You're Mafia, I said. Not a question. We don't use that word. It's reductive, inaccurate, but yes, by most definitions, that's what I am. His dark eyes found mine. I inherited this empire when my father was killed 7 years ago. I was 28, unprepared, surrounded by men who saw my youth as weakness. I had to prove myself worthy of leading, had to show I could be as ruthless as my father, as strategic as my grandfather. And did you? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Prove yourself? Yes. The word carried weight. Regret. I've done things I'm not proud of, Elena. Hurt people who probably didn't deserve it. Made decisions that haunt me. Built an empire on fear and violence. And the understanding that mercy is often interpreted as weakness. He stood, moved to the windows, his silhouette dark against the moonlit lake. Salvatore Genovese, the man at the gala, he wants my territory. Has wanted it for 5 years. We've been in a cold war, testing boundaries. Neither of us willing to escalate into open conflict because the cost would be too high for both sides. And Marco Andretti? Marco works for Salvatore. He's his nephew, his protege, being groomed to eventually take over. Tonight wasn't coincidence. They were there to send a message that they're watching me, looking for weaknesses, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. I'm the weakness. That's why you brought me. You wanted them to see you with someone to think you care about someone so they'd... What? Attack me? Kill me? Use me as leverage? So they'd hesitate, Dante finished. If they think I care about you, it gives me an advantage. They'll be watching you, trying to understand what you mean to me, how to use you, which means they're distracted, off balance. The wine turned sour in my stomach. You used me. You brought me there as bait. No, he turned from the window. I brought you there. As protection. That doesn't make sense. It does in my world. He crossed back to me, crouched down so we were at eye level. Elena, the moment you spilled wine on me, the moment I showed interest, you became a target. Marco was at Aurelio's last week. He saw us, saw how I looked at you. The information got back to Salvatore, who now thinks you matter to me. But I don't, I protested. We're strangers. I spilled wine, and you offered me a deal to repay a debt. That's all this is. Is it? His hand came up slowly, cupped my face with surprising gentleness. Because it doesn't feel that simple to me anymore. My breath caught. The study suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. Dante's thumb traced my cheekbone, barely touching, devastating. I brought you to the gala because if Salvatore thinks you're important, he'll be cautious. He won't strike until he understands exactly what you are to me. That hesitation buys me time to strengthen my position, to prepare for whatever move he's planning. His eyes held mine. But somewhere between the restaurant and tonight, something changed. You're not just strategy anymore, Elena. You're... He trailed off like he couldn't find words or didn't want to say them aloud. I'm what? I whispered. You're someone who makes me want to be different, who looks at me and doesn't see the empire or the violence or the blood, who apologizes for ruining a suit like it's the worst thing she's ever done. His other hand found my face, cradling it between his palms. You're genuine in a world of calculated deception. And that terrifies me because I don't know how to protect something like that. The admission hung between us, vulnerable and raw. What happens now? I asked. Now I keep you safe. His hands dropped away, that vulnerable moment closing as quickly as it had opened. Salvatore will move eventually. Could be days, could be weeks. But when he does, I need to know you're protected. Which means you can't go back to your apartment. Can't work at Aurelio's where any of his people could access you. You need to disappear until this is resolved. Panic spiked. I can't just disappear. I have responsibilities. Nonna needs me. Her medications, her care facility will all be handled. Dante stood, moved to his desk, pulled out a checkbook. I'll ensure your grandmother's care continues. Better care than she's receiving now. Private facility, best doctors, whatever she needs. And I'll cover your living expenses until it's safe for you to return to normal life. He was writing a check, just casually solving problems with money the way I solved them with anxiety and sleepless nights. I don't want your money, I said, standing. I want my life. The one I built myself, with my own hands, without. That life is gone, Elena. He set down the pen, turned to face me. The moment Salvatore's people identified you, the moment Marco approached you at that bar, your normal life ended. I'm offering you protection and resources to survive what's coming. You can accept them with dignity, or you can fight me and put yourself in more danger. Your choice. The coldness in his tone was back. The man who'd touched my face with such gentleness had vanished, replaced by the calculated crime boss who controlled territories and commanded men. You're a bastard, I said, voice shaking with fury and fear. You dragged me into this. You made me a target. And now you're acting like you're doing me a favor by cleaning up your mess? Yes, no apology, just acknowledgement. I am a bastard. I did drag you into this. And now I'm doing everything in my power to keep you alive despite my mistakes. Hate me if you want, I've earned it. But let me protect you anyway. I wanted to scream, wanted to throw the wine glass, wanted to storm out of this mansion and never look back. But Marco's words echoed in my head. People who get close to Dante Romano become casualties. I wasn't close to him, barely knew him. But, apparently, in his world, proximity was enough. Proximity made me a target, a weakness, a problem to be solved with bodyguards and checkbooks and forced disappearances. How long? I asked, defeated. How long until I can have my life back? I don't know. At least he was honest. Salvatore's patient. He could wait months. But I'll end this as quickly as I can without starting a war that would destroy half the city. And if you can't end it? Dante's expression went dark. Then I'll start that war anyway, and I'll make sure you're somewhere safe when it happens. The determination in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a death sentence. For him, for me, for everyone caught in the crossfire of whatever conflict was brewing between families I didn't understand. I need to see Nonna, I said, before I disappear. I need to tell her something. Tomorrow, I'll arrange it. He pulled out his phone, sent a rapid text. Tonight, you stay here. Guest room, second. Floor, third door on the left. Everything you need is already there. You keep guest rooms stocked and ready? The question came out bitter. I keep contingency plans in place for every possible situation. He met my eyes, including ones where I need to protect someone against their will. Against their will. The words hung in the air like an accusation. But what choice did I have? Go back to my apartment where Salvatore's men could find me? Keep working at Aurelio's where Marco could approach me again? Pretend the last few hours hadn't fundamentally changed my reality? No. Dante was right, as much as I hated admitting it. My normal life was gone. The only question now was whether I'd survive long enough to build a new one. Fine, I said. But I want to talk to Nonna alone. No guards, no men in suits hovering. Just me and her. That's non-negotiable. Dante considered, then nodded. Agreed. 1 hour, alone. But my people will be outside, ready to intervene if anything seems wrong. Nothing will be wrong. She's in an assisted living facility, not a war zone. In my world, everywhere is a potential war zone. He moved to the door. The guest room has everything you need. If you want anything else, there's an intercom by the bed. Someone will respond immediately. Someone. Not him. Of course not. He'd done his duty, secured his asset, neutralized the immediate threat, arranged protection. Now he could return to whatever crime lords did late at night. I followed him up the stairs in silence. The guest room was, predictably, larger than my entire apartment. King bed, attached bathroom, walk-in closet, already filled with clothes in my size. How did you... I started. I had someone estimate based on the dress measurements. He stood in the doorway, not entering, maintaining boundaries I was grateful for. Sleep, Elena. Tomorrow will be difficult. You'll need your strength. He started to close the door. Dante? He paused. Thank you. The words felt wrong, thanking someone for protecting me from danger he'd created, but manners were deeply ingrained, for keeping me safe. Something flickered across his expression. Guilt? Regret? Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. Then he was gone, the door closing with a soft click that felt like sealing a tomb. I stood in that beautiful guest room surrounded by luxury I'd never experienced, wearing a dress I could never afford, trapped in a nightmare that had started with spilled wine and a dangerous man's interest. My phone buzzed. Angela, my cousin, probably wondering why I hadn't answered her calls. I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't explain that I'd accidentally stumbled into organized crime and was now under the protection of a Mafia boss who looked at me like I was simultaneously precious and problematic. I turned off the phone, disconnecting from my old life one small death at a time. The dress came off. I found pajamas in the closet silk. Expensive, perfectly sized. Everything Dante did was perfectly executed, perfectly controlled, perfectly designed to solve problems efficiently, including me. I was a problem now. A complication in his war with Salvatore Genovese. I climbed into the enormous bed and stared at the ceiling, mind racing too fast for sleep. Tomorrow I'd see Nonna. Tell her. What? That I was going away for a while? That I'd gotten involved with dangerous people? That her granddaughter, shy, quiet Elena, who'd never caused trouble, had somehow become important enough to warrant protection from men with guns? The absurdity almost made me laugh. Except nothing about this was funny. Somewhere in this mansion, Dante was probably strategizing, planning his next moves, calculating how to use me most effectively while keeping me alive. And somewhere in Chicago, Salvatore Genovese and Marco Andretti were doing the same, looking at me not as a person, but as a piece on a chessboard, something to capture, to leverage, to sacrifice if necessary. I'd wanted to matter, wanted to be seen, wanted my life to mean something beyond survival. Be careful what you wish for. Sleep finally came around 4 a.m., restless and fractured by dreams of wine-stained suits and dark eyes, and a war I didn't understand but couldn't escape. Morning arrived with violent sunlight through windows I'd forgotten to cover. I woke disoriented, tangled in silk sheets that cost more than my monthly rent, in a room that smelled like expensive laundry detergent and fresh flowers. For a confused moment, I thought I'd dreamed everything. The gala, Dante Romano, the revelation that I'd become a target in a war between crime families. Then reality crashed back with nauseating clarity. I was in Dante's mansion, under his protection, trapped in a life I hadn't chosen and couldn't escape. A knock at the door made me jump. Yes? Miss Moretti. A woman's voice, professional and warm. Mr. Romano asked me to inform you that breakfast is ready whenever you'd like, and your visit with your grandmother is scheduled for 10 o'clock. I checked the clock on the nightstand. 8:47 a.m. Just over an hour to prepare myself for a conversation I had no idea how to navigate. Thank you, I called back. I'll be down shortly. The shower was a revelation. Multiple jets, perfect water pressure, temperature that stayed exactly where I set it. I stood under the spray for longer than necessary, letting the heat work through muscles that had been tense for so long I'd forgotten what relaxation felt like. The closet held more than evening wear. Casual clothes, jeans that fit perfectly, sweaters in soft fabrics, even undergarments in my exact size. The thoroughness of Dante's preparation was both impressive and unsettling. He'd anticipated this, planned for the possibility that I'd end up here, needing protection, needing to disappear. How long had he been watching me before the wine incident? Or was this just how he operated, always 3 steps ahead? Contingency plans for contingency plans? Nothing left to chance? I dressed in jeans and a cream sweater that felt like wearing clouds. Found my way downstairs following the scent of coffee and something baking. The kitchen was massive, professional-grade appliances, marble countertops, windows overlooking manicured gardens, where I spotted 2 men in casual clothes who were definitely security, despite their attempts to look like groundskeepers. Dante sat at the island, laptop open, coffee cup in hand. He'd showered too, his dark hair still slightly damp, wearing black slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, casual but still commanding, even in his own home. He looked up when I entered. Those dark eyes tracked my movement with the same intensity as always, cataloging details, assessing. "Good morning," he said. "Coffee? Please." I slid onto the stool across from him, maintaining distance. He poured from a French press, added cream without asking how I took it. Had he noticed last night? Filed away that small detail among all the other information he collected? The coffee was perfect. Of course it was. "Did you sleep?" Dante asked, closing his laptop to give me his full attention. Eventually. "You?" Enough. Which probably meant not at all. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "Elena, about last night." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't apologize or explain or try to make this better. You told me the truth. That's more than most people in your position would do. Now let's just move forward." Something flickered across his expression. Relief? Respect? "All right. Moving forward, your visit with your grandmother. I'll have Franco drive you. He's my most trusted man, former military, completely professional. He'll wait outside while you talk to her, but he needs to be close in case something happens." "Nothing's going to happen. It's an assisted living facility in broad daylight." "Elena." His voice dropped to that tone that meant don't argue. "Salvatore's people could be watching the facility already. They know your grandmother exists. It takes 30 seconds on the internet to find that information. So Franco goes. Non-negotiable." I wanted to fight him on it. Wanted to insist I could handle one visit on my own. But Marco's face at the gala flashed through my mind. The calculating way he'd looked at me. the certainty in his voice when he'd called Dante dangerous. Fine, but he stays outside. I need privacy with Nana. Agreed. A woman appeared 50s, kind face, wearing an apron. She set a plate in front of me without asking. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit arranged like art. Thank you, I murmured. Maria's been with my family for 20 years, Dante said after she'd left. She doesn't speak much English, but she understands everything, and she's completely trustworthy. Trustworthy. The word carried weight in his world, life or death weight. I picked at the death, food, managing a few bites despite my stomach being in knots. Dante returned to his laptop, typing rapidly, occasionally taking calls in Italian too fast for me to follow. At 9:45, he closed the computer. Franco's ready. Are you? No. Yes. The car was different from last night's town car. Black SUV with tinted windows, the kind I'd seen in movies about Secret Service or private military. Franco sat in the driver's seat, late 40s, gray threading through dark hair, a face that had seen violence and made peace with it. Miss Moretti. He nodded as I climbed in. I'll get you there safely. Dante appeared at the door before Franco could close it. He leaned in, his expression serious. 1 hour, Elena. If you're not out in an hour, Franco comes in. Understand? I understand. And if anything feels wrong, anyone watching, anyone approaching, anything that makes you uncomfortable, you tell Franco immediately. Promise me. The intensity in his voice surprised me. This wasn't strategy or calculation. This was genuine concern. I promise. He held my gaze for a long moment, then stepped back. Franco closed the door and we pulled away, leaving Dante standing in front of his mansion, looking like a man who'd just sent something precious into danger. The drive to Nana's facility took 20 minutes. Franco drove with practiced efficiency, checking mirrors constantly, taking turns that seemed random but probably weren't. How long have you worked for Dante? I asked, breaking the silence. 12 years. Franco's eyes flicked to me in the rearview mirror, since Mr. Romano's father was still running things. And you're… what? A bodyguard? Security specialist. A diplomatic way of saying what we both knew he really was. My job is keeping important people alive. I'm not important. Mr. Romano thinks you are. That makes you important. Franco pulled into the facility's parking lot, chose a spot with clear sightlines to all entrances. I'll be right here, Miss Moretti. You take the time you need. But please be aware of your surroundings. If anyone seems too interested, if anything feels off, you come straight back. I nodded and headed inside, trying to ignore the weight of Franco's attention on my back. Meadowbrook Assisted Living was nicer than I could really afford, but Nana had lived through enough hardship. I couldn't let her spend her final years somewhere that smelled like antiseptic and resignation. The lobby was bright, decorated with artwork from residents, staffed by people who actually smiled. Elena! The receptionist Caroline, young and genuinely kind, waved me over. Your grandmother's been asking about you. She's in the sunroom. I found Nana exactly where she always was on Saturday mornings. Sunroom, second chair from the window, book in her lap that she was probably rereading for the 100th time. She looked up when I entered, her face transforming with joy. Piccola, you came! Of course I came, Nana. I kissed her papery cheek, settled into the chair beside her. I always come. She studied me with eyes that had seen too much life to miss the signs of stress. Something is wrong. You look tired, scared. What troubles you? Where did I even start? I met someone, I said finally. A man. It's complicated. Nana's expression shifted to interest. Complicated how? Is he married? Criminal? She said it jokingly, not knowing how close she'd hit. Not married. But he's involved in things I don't understand. Dangerous things. I took her hand, thin and fragile but still strong enough to squeeze mine. I need to go away for a while, Nana. Maybe a few weeks. Maybe longer. I can't explain why, but I need you to know you'll be taken care of. Better care than here even. The best doctors, anything you need. Her eyes sharpened. This man. He is offering this care? Yes. And what does he want in return? The question was exactly what I'd expected. Nana hadn't survived 83 years, including World War II and immigration to America, by being naive. He wants to protect me. There are people who might want to hurt me because they think I matter to him. And do you matter to him? I thought about Dante's hand on my face last night, the way he'd looked at me with something that felt like wonder. the promise in his voice when he'd said he'd keep me safe. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. It's too new, too fast. But Nonna, I'm scared. I don't know what I've gotten myself into. She was quiet for a long moment, her thumb rubbing circles on the back of my hand. Then, when I was 17, during the war, there was a man, dangerous man, involved with the resistance. He came to our village looking for food, for shelter. My father wanted to turn him away, too risky, too dangerous. But I saw something in him, something good underneath the necessity of violence. I'd never heard this story. What happened? I helped him, gave him food, a place to hide for 3 days while Germans searched the village. He could have been caught. We could have been killed for harboring him, but I chose to trust him anyway. Her eyes met mine. He survived the war, came back 5 years later to thank my family. By then I was married to your grandfather, living in Rome, but I never regretted helping him, even though it was dangerous, even though it could have destroyed everything. What are you saying, Nonna? I'm saying trust your instincts, Piccola. If this man is dangerous but good, if he's trying to protect you despite the risk to himself, maybe he's worth the danger. Maybe some people are worth the risk. She squeezed my hand. But if he's just dangerous, if there's no good underneath, then you run. You run fast and far and you don't look back. The wisdom settled over me like a blanket, comforting and suffocating at once. I don't know which one he is yet. Then you take time to find out. But Elena, the voice turned serious. You promise me, if this becomes too much, if you need to leave, you leave. You don't sacrifice yourself for a man, no matter how much you think you love him. You understand? I don't love him, Nonna. I barely know him. Ah, but you're already making excuses for him, already seeing the good underneath the danger. That's how it starts, Piccola. That's how love begins, with seeing potential where others see only threat. Was she right? Was I already falling for Dante Romano despite every logical reason not to? We talked for another 40 minutes. About her health improving, the new medications were helping. About the facility, she'd made friends with another Italian woman. They played cards every evening. About nothing important, everything important. Normal conversation about a normal life that felt increasingly distant. At 10:55, I kissed her forehead. I need to go, Nonna, but I'll call you. And if anything changes, if you need anything, I will call this dangerous man of yours and tell him to take better care of my granddaughter. She smiled, but her eyes were wet. Go, Piccola. Be safe, be smart, and come back to me when you can. I left before I started crying. Franco was exactly where I'd left him, leaning against the SUV like he'd been carved from stone. His eyes tracked every person in the parking lot, every vehicle that passed. Everything okay? He asked as I approached. Yes. Can we go? He opened the door, helped me inside with surprising courtesy. We'd just pulled out of the parking lot when his phone rang. Yeah, boss. A pause. A pause. She's fine. We're heading back now. He listened for another moment, his expression hardening. Then, understood. We'll take the alternate route. He hung up, immediately changed direction. Instead of heading back toward Dante's mansion, we turned deeper into the city. What's wrong? I asked, fear spiking. Mr. Romano wants you somewhere else for a few hours. Nothing to worry about, just a precaution. But Franco's jaw was tight, his eyes constantly checking mirrors. Franco, tell me the truth. What happened? He was silent for a long moment. Then, someone was watching the facility. Mr. Romano's people spotted them about 20 minutes ago. Gray sedan, 2 occupants, parked across the street with clear sightline to the entrance. They pulled out when you did, followed us for 3 blocks before our tail intercepted them. My stomach dropped. Salvatore's people, probably. Which means they know about your grandmother now. Know she matters to you. Franco's voice stayed calm, professional. Mr. Romano's moving her to a new facility this afternoon. Better security, private room, around-the-clock protection disguised as medical staff. She'll be safer than she's ever been. He's moving my grandmother? Without asking me? He's protecting your grandmother. There's a difference. Franco glanced at me in the mirror. Miss Moretti, I understand this is overwhelming. But Mr. Romano is very good at keeping people alive. Trust him. Let him do what he does best. What he does best? Protect people? Or control them? The line felt increasingly blurred. We drove for another 15 minutes. Finally pulling up to a building, I recognized one of the high-rise condos overlooking the river. Expensive. Exclusive. The kind of place with doormen and security and residents who didn't acknowledge each other in elevators. Franco led me inside. The doorman nodded with recognition he knew Franco, which meant Dante owned property here. Of course he did. The elevator took us to the 23rd floor. Franco used a key card to access the penthouse. The space was beautiful in that same cold, controlled way as Dante's mansion. Modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, art that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime, but emptier somehow. Like no one actually lived here. "Mr. Romano will join you shortly," Franco said. "In the meantime, make yourself comfortable. Kitchen is stocked, TV works, internet password is on the counter. I'll be right outside if you need anything." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in this gilded cage with a view that stretched across Chicago's skyline. I moved to the windows, pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Somewhere out there, Salvatore's people were watching, waiting, planning, and Nana was being moved because I'd spilled wine on a man in an $8,000 suit. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. My phone buzzed. Angela again. I couldn't keep ignoring her, but I also couldn't tell her the truth. I answered. "Hey, Elena, finally, where the hell have you been? I've called you like 20 times. Angela's voice carried worry and frustration in equal measure. "I know. I'm sorry. Things have been crazy." "Crazy how? You missed family dinner on Sunday. Aunt Maria is convinced you're dead in a ditch somewhere." Family dinner. I'd completely forgotten. Another piece of my normal life crumbling away. Tell her I'm fine. I met someone. It's new. It's intense. I'm figuring things out. Silence on the other end. Then, "You met someone? Elena, you haven't dated in like 3 years. Who is this guy?" "His name is Dante. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "Elena, you sound weird. Are you okay? Like actually okay?" "No. Yes. I promise. I'm just adjusting to some changes. I'll explain everything when I can. But right now I need you to trust that I'm safe, and I know what I'm doing." Another lie. I had no idea what I was doing. "Okay," Angela said slowly, clearly not convinced. "But if you need anything, if anything feels wrong, you call me. Immediately. Promise?" "I promise." We hung up and I stood there holding my phone, staring at the Chicago skyline, wondering how many more lies I'd have to tell before this was over. The door opened. I spun around, heart hammering, then relaxed marginally when I saw Dante. He looked exhausted, more tired than this morning, shoulders carrying weight that seemed to have increased in the few hours since I'd seen him. "Elena." He closed the door behind him, moved into the space with that same controlled grace. "I'm sorry about the change in plans. Salvatore's people at the facility," Franco told me, "and he told me you're moving my grandmother without asking me first." Dante's expression hardened slightly. "Would you rather I left her vulnerable? Let Salvatore's people know exactly where she is, how to access her? I'd rather you asked before making decisions that affect my family." There wasn't time. His voice rose for the first time since I'd met him, not quite shouting but close. By the time Franco called, they'd already been watching for 30 minutes. I had maybe an hour window to move her before they established patterns, before they figured out when she's most vulnerable. So yes, I made the decision without consulting you because waiting could have gotten her killed. The anger in his voice was shocking, not directed at me. Exactly. More like frustration at a situation spiraling beyond his control. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "You're right. Thank you for protecting her." He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting the careful styling. "No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled. This situation is..." He stopped himself. Salvatore moved faster than I anticipated. He's escalating, which means he's either very confident or very desperate. Both options are dangerous. What does that mean for us? It means we're past the cautious testing phase. He knows about you, about your grandmother. He'll move against one or both of you soon to prove he can. To show me I'm vulnerable. Dante moved to the bar, poured whiskey despite it not even being noon yet. "So we need to be smarter, more careful, or you could just let me go." The words came out before I could stop them. "Tell Salvatore I mean nothing to you, that I was just a random woman at a gala. Cut your losses and let me disappear." Dante's hand froze on the whiskey glass. Slowly, deliberately. He set it down and turned to face me fully. "Is that what you want?" I should say yes. Should take the escape he was offering, run back to my tiny apartment and normal life and pretend none of this happened. But Nana's words echoed in my head. Trust your instincts. If he's dangerous but good, maybe he's worth the risk. I don't know what I want, I admitted. 3 days ago, I was a waitress worried about rent. Now I'm hiding in a penthouse while crime families fight over whether I matter. It's insane. All of this is completely insane. Yes. He crossed to me slowly, like approaching something skittish. It is insane and unfair, and I dragged you into it without considering the consequences. But Elena. He stopped a foot away, close enough that I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the strain. I can't let you go. Not because of strategy or territory or protecting my interests. I can't let you go because the thought of Salvatore hurting you, using you, killing you to send me a message, it's unbearable. Do you understand? My breath caught. You barely know me. I know you apologized for ruining a suit while offering to give me months of income. I know you visit your grandmother every week without fail. I know you're terrified right now, but still standing here arguing with me instead of falling apart. I know when you smile, actually smile, not that customer service version it transforms your entire face. His hand came up slowly, cupped my cheek with devastating gentleness. I know enough. The air between us felt electric, charged with possibilities and dangers in equal measure. This is a terrible idea, I whispered. The worst, he agreed. You're dangerous. Your world is violent. People who get close to you get hurt. All true. Then why can't I walk away? His thumb traced my cheekbone, barely touching. Because you're dangerous too, Elena. In completely different ways. You make me want things I have no right wanting. You make me remember what it felt like to be human instead of just a position to be protected or a territory to be controlled. I should step back, should maintain distance, should remember that this man commanded criminal enterprises and made people disappear. Instead, I leaned into his touch. What happens now? My voice came out barely audible. Now I find a way to end this that doesn't require your death or mine. His forehead pressed against mine, both of us breathing the same air. And you decide if you can live with what that ending might look like. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He pulled back with visible reluctance, checked the screen, and his entire expression shifted. I have to take this. He moved toward the window, answered in Italian too rapid for me to follow. But I caught tone, and tone was everything. Whatever news he was receiving, it wasn't good. He hung up after 2 minutes, staring out the window with shoulders rigid with tension. Dante. What's wrong? Salvatore made his move. His voice was hollow. 20 minutes ago, 6 of his men hit one of my warehouses, killed 3 of my people, wounded 2 more, took approximately $2 million in product. Horror flooded through me. Oh my God. It's a declaration. He's saying he's not afraid of retaliation, that he's willing to escalate to open war. Dante turned to face me, which means everything gets more dangerous now, for everyone. What are you going to do? His eyes went dark, empty. The man I'd been talking to vanished, replaced by something colder, harder. I'm going to remind him why my family has controlled this territory for 4 generations. He moved toward the door. Stay here. Franco will remain outside. Don't leave for any reason. I'll be back as soon as I can. How long? I don't know. Hours. Maybe overnight. He paused at the door, looked back at me with an expression I couldn't read. I'm sorry, Elena. For all of this. You deserved better than getting caught in my war. Then he was gone. I stood alone in that expensive penthouse, surrounded by luxury that felt more like a prison with every passing second. Outside the windows, Chicago continued its oblivious existence. People going to work, living normal lives, completely unaware of the war being waged in the shadows. 3 people were dead because Dante controlled territory Salvatore wanted. How many more would die before this ended? And when it was over, would I be able to look at Dante the same way? Or would I see only the violence, the blood, the empire built on fear and control? I didn't have answers. All I had was time, solitude, and the growing certainty that I'd already crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I'd chosen Dante Romano, for better or worse. Now I just had to survive long enough to see if that choice destroyed me. The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. I tried everything to distract myself. Turned on the TV, couldn't focus. Attempted to read from the books, lining the shelves, the words blurred together. Made coffee, let it grow cold while staring out the windows. Franco checked on me twice, both times with the same message. Mr. Romano is handling the situation. You're safe here. Safe. The word felt increasingly meaningless. At 6 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. Elena Moretti. Not a question. A man's voice I didn't recognize. Accent thick Albanian. Maybe. You are a very hard woman to reach. Ice flooded my veins. Who is this? A friend. Someone who wants to help you understand the danger you are in. Papers rustled in the background. Dante Romano is using you. He does not care about your safety, only about how you can benefit his position against my employer. Your employer being Salvatore Genovese. My voice stayed surprisingly steady. Very good. You are smarter than Romano gives you credit for, which is why I'm offering you a choice: continue being his pawn, or accept protection from people who will actually keep you safe. You killed 3 people today. We defended our interests against Romano's aggression. No remorse in his tone, just matter-of-fact explanation. The violence is regrettable but necessary. You understand necessity, yes? Necessity of survival? What do you want? I want to meet. Just you and me. Neutral location, public place. I explain our position. You make an informed choice about your future. No pressure, no threats. Just information. Every instinct screamed trap. And if I refuse, then you remain Romano's weakness. And weaknesses in our world do not survive long. He paused. I will text you a location and time. You come alone, or you continue being trapped in his gilded cage until this war kills you both. He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, heart hammering. Should I tell Franco? Tell Dante? But what would they do? Increase security? Move me somewhere else? Keep me more isolated? More trapped? The text arrived 30 seconds later. Unknown. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Lincoln Park, near the pond. Come alone or don't come at all. Your choice, Elena. Always your choice. My choice. As if any of this had been my choice. I should tell Franco. Should show him the messages and let Dante's people handle it. But part of me, the part that had been making decisions and surviving on my own for years before Dante Romano entered my life, wanted to at least hear what they had to say. Wanted to understand both sides before committing completely to one. I slipped the phone into my pocket and said nothing. Dante returned at 11 p.m., looking like he'd aged a decade. Blood spatter on his shirt collar, not his, I hoped. Exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Elena. He stopped just inside the door, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome in his own property. Are you hurt? I asked, moving toward him. No, the blood isn't mine. He pulled off his jacket, revealing more stains underneath. I need to shower. Then we need to talk. He disappeared into what I assumed was the bedroom. I heard water running, the faint sounds of someone washing away evidence of violence. When he emerged 20 minutes later, he'd transformed. Clean clothes, damp hair, that controlled exterior mostly restored, but his eyes still carried shadows. 3 dead, 2 wounded, he said without preamble. All good men who didn't deserve to die in a warehouse over territory and pride. I'm sorry. Don't be. This is my world. My choices led to their deaths. He poured whiskey, drank it in one swallow, poured another. Salvatore's making his play. The warehouse was just the opening move. He'll escalate until I either give him what he wants or respond with overwhelming force. What does he want? Everything. My ports, my territories, my businesses. And when I refuse because I will refuse, he'll come after. Everything I value to break me. He looked at me when he said it, the implication clear. I'm what you value? The question came out softer than intended. Dante crossed to me, each step deliberate. When he reached me, his hands framed my face with a gentleness that contradicted the violence he'd just participated in. Yes, God help us both. Yes. Then he kissed me. Not gentle, not questioning. Desperate, claiming, like I was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. His hands tangled in my hair, pulled me closer, erasing any distance between us. I should have resisted, should have remembered the blood on his collar, the 3 dead men, the war being waged around us. Instead, I kissed him back with equal desperation. We stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding clothes and inhibitions, and the last pretense that this was just about strategy or protection. His hands on my skin felt like salvation and damnation. My fingers traced scars I'd only glimpsed before evidence of a violent life, of survival, against odds. He was gentle despite the desperation, careful with me in ways that suggested he knew exactly how fragile I was, how easily I could break. Afterward, we lay tangled together, both breathing hard, both avoiding the conversation that needed to happen. "This changes things," I finally said. "Yes." His fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "Does that terrify you?" "Completely." "Good. It should." He pulled me closer, his body warm against mine. "Because there's no going back now, Elena. You're mine in every way that matters. And I will burn this city down before I let Salvatore take you from me." The possessiveness should have bothered me, should have sent me running. Instead, it felt like the only solid thing in a world gone liquid and unstable. I thought about the text message, the meeting tomorrow at Lincoln Park, the choice I'd been offered. I should tell him, should confess that Salvatore's people had reached out, offered alternatives. But morning felt far away, and for now, wrapped in Dante Romano's arms with his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, I let myself pretend we had time. Pretend this could work. Pretend love and violence could coexist without destroying everything they touched. Tomorrow I'd make my choice. Tonight, I was exactly where I wanted to be, even if it was the most dangerous place in Chicago. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.